Hey YouTube, welcome back. In today's video, we're going to be going over the differences between bipolar 1 disorder, bipolar 2 disorder, and cyclothymic disorder, so stay tuned. We're really going to break this down. And as you see here on your screen, just like in my previous videos I made where I'm breaking down the differences between these disorders, I also put a list of the common medications associated with these disorders, so that way while we're studying the differences between these disorders, we can also get that additional compound studying in of the common medications associated with these disorders. So just kind of like a helpful tip. And there's a link, check the link in the description below for the video I made regarding all of the medications and a nice method on how to study them and memorize a good amount of them with very little effort. So definitely check that out after you guys get done checking out this video. Okay, so now let's get into breaking it down. So with bipolar 1 disorder, a manic phase, that's the main giveaway. A manic phase is elevated mood for at least 1 week that leads to significant impairment, such as hospitalization. Only a manic phase is needed to diagnose. MDD, which is major depressive disorder, is not needed. MDD could occur, but not needed. In a manic episode, it's a period of extremely high energy or elevated mood, severe enough to interfere with daily functioning and may require hospitalization for stabilization. So when someone's in a manic phase, a manic state, it's significant, it's noticeable. There's no confusion about, hey, there's something going on here. There's something different about this person's presentation, about their behavior, much more significant than bipolar 2. And we'll get into that in a second. So listed here in front of you, we have symptoms and the presentation of how they may present themselves when answering the questions on the exam. So we have inflated self-esteem or grandiosity, bragging, unrealistic and or inaccurate perspective of oneself. We have decreased need for sleep, so expressing how you don't require sleep, high energy from little sleep, increased talkativeness, so a bit of rambling, racing thoughts, having a lot of ideas, plans, distracted easily, so trouble focusing, increase in goal-directed activity. I'm going to become the CEO of the company I work for by the end of the month, or psychomotor agitation, so doing a lot of unnecessary movements such as pacing around the room, tapping your hands or toes, rapid talking. And listed here, engaging in activities that hold potential for painful consequences. And we're not just talking about physical harm, potential consequences. This could be other painful consequences in other areas. So risky behavior such as gambling, excessive spending such as buying sprees, high risk sexual behavior, etc. So these are some of the things you want to look out for when going through the question stem and trying to diagnose, is it between bipolar 1 or bipolar 2? And again, we're about to jump into bipolar 2 now. So with bipolar 2 disorder, hypomania, it needs to last at least 4 days and at least one episode of MDD, which is again major depressive disorder. So remember how with bipolar 1 disorder, only a manic phase is needed. With bipolar 2 disorder, you need to experience that hypomania, which is a less severe version of that manic state, and you need one episode of major depressive disorder. So again, bipolar 1 is much more severe. Bipolar 2 is less severe. And with bipolar 2, you need to have an episode of major depressive disorder for it to be diagnosed. And the time frames are important. Bipolar 1 said 1 week. Bipolar 2, as you see listed in front of you, 4 days. And again, it's a milder form of mania, does not necessarily require hospitalization. A person experiencing mania will exhibit manic symptoms, but is able to continue with day-to-day responsibilities and may even see an increase in job performance or other goal-directed activities. Usually, hospitalization is not required. While noticeable, no significant disruption at home or work. So when I work with clients in the past who experience hypomania, they've reported similar things where they say, hey, I had like this surge of energy. I was able to get certain tasks done. I was more productive at work, more productive at home, etc. But that crash usually follows again, which is that MDD, the major depressive disorder, that period of time. So that's why we definitely want to treat it where it's not all benefit from experiencing that hypomania. But again, the main difference is the time frame of bipolar 1 week, bipolar 2 at least 4 days, and an episode of MDD is required. And then overall, bipolar 1 is more severe than that of bipolar 2 disorder. And now looking at major depressive disorder or MDD, here are some of the symptoms associated with it of depressed mood, changes in sleep. So either increased or decreased quality of sleep, decreased, usually if they're like waking up throughout the night, difficulty going to sleep, etc. Changes in appetite, whether it increases or decreases, fatigue or lack of energy, loss of pleasure in activities once enjoyed or anhedonia, restlessness or slowing down, feelings of guilt or worthlessness, indecision or difficulty concentrating, and thoughts of suicide. So again, this MDD episode is needed for bipolar 2. It could occur for bipolar 1, but on the exam, it's really, really going to highlight more so it being bipolar 2 if it's made obvious that an episode of bipolar 2 occurred where they experienced that hypomania and there was that crash of MDD as well. And remember the time frame. I'm going to sound like a broken record. Time frame. Bipolar 1 needs at least 1 week. Bipolar 2 needs at least 4 days with an episode of MDD. And if there's been any form of hospitalization, you might want to lean more towards bipolar 1 because the symptoms, the functioning for that person experiencing bipolar 1 is going to be much more significant than that of bipolar 2. Cyclothymic disorder. So with cyclothymic disorder, symptoms are similar to bipolar 2 disorder with cycles of highs and lows, but does not meet the criteria for mania or MDD. It's less severe form of mania, less severe form of depression, and symptoms need to be present for at least 2 years. So when you're taking the exam and you're presented with a possible question where they want you to differentiate between, wait, is it bipolar 1 disorder? Is it bipolar 2 disorder? Or is it cyclothymic disorder? Pay attention to the time frame. If it's been a very extended period of time, such as past that 2-year mark, that might want to make your ears perk up and say, wait a second, could it possibly cyclothymic disorder? And again, bipolar 1 is the most severe, followed by bipolar 2, followed by cyclothymic, because as it states right here in front of us, it's less severe form of mania and less severe form of depression. On the exam, they're not going to give us every single criteria for each diagnosis, and then we're going to be able to say, oh, okay, is that one, because it gave us all of these and that one's not. They're very similar. They're very, very similar. So you want to focus on the time frame and the severity of what has been going on, where if it's hospitalization, you might want to lean more towards bipolar 1. If it's they're still able to function, you notice a change in the behavior, they're still able to function, especially then you notice like a crash afterwards, you might want to lean more towards bipolar 2. And if it's been going on for an extended period of time, it's not as severe as a manic state and a MDD depressive state, and you might want to go with cyclothymic disorder. Okay, so now let's jump into some practice questions. Practice question number 1. A 32-year-old woman is referred to a social worker due to a noticed change in her behavior by others. During the assessment, the woman reports that she has a plan to become rich in the next few days by using all the money in her retirement account and maxing out her new credit card to bet on the upcoming Super Bowl. She reports feeling good about her chances as she has read many articles and watched several sports-related videos about the two teams. What is the most likely diagnosis? Is it A, bipolar 2 disorder, B, cyclothymic disorder, C, major depressive disorder, or D, bipolar 1 disorder? Pause, read through the question, and then unpause it, and then we'll go through the explanation. Let's break down the answer choices. With A, bipolar 2 disorder, behavior is noted as severe due to risky behavior of gambling her retirement money and maxing out her credit card. Remember when we went over bipolar 2 earlier, we stated that someone experiencing bipolar 2 disorder or hypomania, they're still able to function somewhat appropriately and may even see an increase in their daily activities. But the behavior that we're seeing with this person is presenting, it's very severe, where it has the chance for, again, very risky, very damaging behavior. So we want to be able to rule out. We want to rule out A. All right, let's do it like this. We want to rule this one out. Looking at B, cyclothymic disorder, 2-year criteria have not been met. So there's nothing here stating it's been 2 years, and also the severity. Because remember when we went over cyclothymic disorder earlier, it's less severe, both on the manic side and the depressive side. And there's nothing noted in here about the woman experiencing an episode of MDD. So we want to rule out that. Remember, we have to work with what the question gives us. C, major depressive disorder, nothing noted about a decrease in mood. So again, we have to work with what the exam is giving us. And then D would be the correct answer of bipolar 1 disorder. Why? Risky behavior is noted in the form of withdrawing from savings, maxing out a credit card, and gambling on the Super Bowl, right? It's very severe, and it has the potential to really impact someone's life. So that's why we're going to go with D of bipolar 1 disorder. Now let's look at practice question number 2. A 45-year-old man meets with a social worker due to his low mood within the past week. During the assessment, the man reports having periods of not wanting to socialize or do other activities he normally enjoys. When asked by the social worker how long has he felt this way, the man reports the last 4 years have been challenging. The man states, "Sometimes I have a boost of energy and I'm good. Other times it takes more effort and I wait for my energy to return. What is the most likely diagnosis?" So we have, again, same answer choices of A, bipolar 2 disorder, B, cyclothymic disorder, C, major depressive disorder, or D, bipolar 1 disorder. Take a second, pause the video, give yourself some time, and then unpause it and we'll jump into the explanation. Okay, let's break it down. So looking at answer choice A, bipolar 2 disorder, an episode of MDD, major depressive disorder, is required. The man reports a decrease in mood within the past week. MDD requires at least 2 weeks of present symptoms, and that's the criteria for MDD of needing that 2-week time span, that time frame. Remember, time frame, not just for bipolar 1, bipolar 2, for any of the diagnoses. The time frame is the major giveaway. Sometimes we can't just simply look at the symptoms. While the symptoms are important, we want to focus on the time frame as well. So because of that, bipolar 2 is not the correct answer. When we look at B, cyclothymic disorder, the length of time criteria has been met. So when we scroll up again, during the assessment, the man reports having periods of not wanting to socialize or do other activities he normally enjoys. When asked by the social worker how long has he felt this way, the man reports the last 4 years. Remember, the criteria for cyclothymic disorder is at least 2 years of kind of like a roller coaster of your mood being elevated and then decreasing, being decreased and then elevating again. And the man states, "Sometimes I have a boost of energy and I'm good. Other times it takes more effort and I wait for my energy to return." So it's not severe enough to count as a manic, hypomanic state, or a depressive state, where again, 2-week criteria for MDD. And when we look at C, so cyclothymic disorder would be the correct answer in this case because of those reasons. If we look at C, major depressive disorder, periods of elevated mood are noted as well. Also, the question asks most likely. So that's another thing that may trip people up on the exam, where they may see another answer choice where it's like, ooh, like this, it could potentially be this if it just had that extra bit of it, right? But we have to work with what the question on the exam gives us, and it says the most likely. So that extra bit that's in there where they're speaking of the elevated mood, the periods of the elevated mood, we don't want to discount that. So the most likely diagnosis would be the cyclothymic disorder. So we want to take this one out. And why not bipolar 1 disorder, which is answer choice D? Nothing severe was noted in the question, such as needing hospitalization or conducting risky behavior. Remember, you must work with what the question is giving us. So D of bipolar disorder would not be the correct answer. When we're going through the exam, and this is for all of these type of questions, whether we're talking about diagnosis, whether we're talking about the first next best type of questions, we want to work with what the exam is giving us, the questions, the information's within the question itself, and we want to pick the best possible choice. In my experience, you're usually able to eliminate 1 to 2 answer choices off the bat just from, the information we may have. And we may say, oh, we kind of know it's not this. For example, if one of the answer choices was schizophrenia, there was nothing noted about any psychosis or anything like that. However, it's usually those last 1 to 2 answer choices where it's like, ooh, it could be either this answer or that answer, or it's between these 3 answer choices. So we want to go with which is the most accurate one given the information provided within the question itself. Okay, that's it for today's video. Thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and put on the notifications if you can, as I plan to come out with more content. And remember, you guys got this. You got this. I understand. It's like, man, studying for these exams, these 4 hours exams, especially if we haven't studied for a period of time because we've been out of school, whether we're taking our LSW exam or LCSW exam, we got this. Continue to study, tune into the videos, get the information, let it really absorb, let it really digest, and then we're going to go in, we're going to pass those exams, and then we're just going to keep it moving. So thank you guys, and I'll see you at next video. Bye.